question is who? Well, Bob is the most tenured for sure, but who's been on the beat the longest? That's what that's. It has to be Bob. All right, all right. Good deal. We ready? All right, good deal. Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here. So, a couple of days of a bye week, and kind of give you an update. We scrimmaged 3 times last week with our younger guys. How we handled the schedule, just for everybody's kind of knowledge, is we practiced twice, like in a traditional bye week setting. Like we practiced last Tuesday and Wednesday, and then we started our Baylor prep on Friday. But we scrimmaged with our young guys Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. And we call it Sunday night football just because that's when we normally do it. But these are the guys, starting with defense. I thought these are the top performers. The defense won the 3-day scrimmage overall. Over 3 days, went about a little over 100 plays. So it's good work for these guys. D-line, Asani Redwood, and I think he's got a chance to help us as we progress down the season. Riley Collins, who's played a little bit on special teams, his role could increase as well. Jalen Shelton at corner did a nice job, and he's getting some looks this week as well. He's been injured. You know, he's a junior college transfer from Texas and been injured, but is healthy now, and he had a good bye week. Jaito Favaris did a nice job. He's been playing for us on special teams. And then Eric Burton, who is a freshman, been here since January. He's probably a 2-year kind of project, but he's showing some signs of being able to rush the passer, which is good. Offensively, Nico is really improving. Excited about his growth. Jalen Anderson had 3 nice days. On the offensive line, Dylan Ray probably did the best, and he's a guy that, as he continues to put on weight, it's going to be a factor down the road. And then Hudson Clement is another guy that is a redshirt guy that's probably going to redshirt this year. Believe has a nice future. So some names for you there off those scrimmages. Kind of turned to Baylor. A group that really dominated us last year. Had some chances in the first half to make it a game, and they hit a bunch of explosive plays against us last year. And then we didn't do a very good job in the red zone. But I thought they just physically got after us down in Waco last year. Very well coached in all 3 phases. I think they've taken on the demeanor of Dave. They don't get rattled. They're very consistent week in and week out. Starting with special teams, I think their specialists are really good. They've always done a nice job in the return game, and that goes back to when Coach Rule was there too. And they continue to do that. They've done a nice job so far in their punt return game, and that's gonna be something that we have to spend some time on this week for sure. Defensively, I think it starts with who the head coach is. Dave Rand, I think he's one of the top defensive minds in the country, and then his defensive coordinator Ron Roberts is a guy that was in some smaller colleges for a long time, and people in the Southeast knew who he was and knew how well coached his defenses were, and now. Being at Lafayette first and now here at Baylor, he's starting to really the entire country's starting to find out how good a defensive coach Coach Roberts is. So a lot of respect for both those guys. I think it starts with their front after their coaches. Their front, what they do is they play a reduced box, but their front 6 is so good, even though they're a gap short, that nobody's ran the ball against them this year. And Eco is the D tackle 62. I think he's special. He does a really good job. He's not just a big guy. Like a lot of people just look at him and he's a monster of a man. But he's agile, and he's playing more plays in a row this year than he did last year. He was a first-team all-conference player last year. He's on his way to being that again. And he's a tough matchup one-on-one. I'm not sure that anybody's had success blocking him in one-on-one situations yet. But he takes up 2 gaps. The rest of their front's really active. I think Dylan Doyle, their linebacker, that's 3-year starter now. he kind of makes them go. And Jones moves over from kind of playing a bandit position last year to now he's at the mic, and he's got length, and he does a really nice job in coverage as well as down in the box. And so the front six there has done a really good job of controlling the run game, and that's allowed them to play a lot of two safety defenses. They haven't given up many explosive pass plays because of that. Because they're able to keep their safeties out of the run fits. And so, but overall, they've been really good defensively so far, and that's against playing some really good offenses. Offensively, I think the strength is at their O-line. And the kind of the genius in what they do is, since Coach Grimes got there as the offense coordinator, is they don't run very many plays. They've got some quick game concepts, got some play action pass concepts. Run game is all based off of outside zone. And what they do is they master these few plays that they run, and they do them with shifts, motions, formation in the boundary, unbalanced. They do it a bunch of different ways, but it's easy for them, and it's hard on the team defending them. The quarterback is mobile. He's got a quick release, doing a really good job. I think in the RPO game, but Chapin is a guy that can hurt you with his legs, and he gets the ball out on time. I mean, they're not giving up very many hits on him, and I think that's a credit to him as much as the offensive line. Kind of running back by committee, it's a good group. The 29, who's a freshman, Reese, is starting to get more and more of the carries. He's really fast. He's decisive. I see why they're kind of leaning on him. And then kind of the game changer for him that's really growing in his role week to week is Baldwin, who's number 80. And he's probably as fast as anybody that we've played thus far, similar to Worthy from Texas in his ability to run. And then their leading receivers are tight ends, and they're going to play with 2, sometimes 3 tight ends in the game, but Sims, number 8, is their leading receiver, and they use him a lot, kind of nakeds and bootlegs, and he's kind of the security blanket for Chapin there. So good football team. They're top 25 team. They're sound on all 3 phases. They're the Big 12 champion until proven otherwise. That's the way I look at it. They return a ton. And they won in Dallas last year, and they're the defending champions. And so we're excited to be back home. First time in a long time, almost a month since we played a home game. It's a night game. It's a Thursday night game. There's been some classic games here in the history of West Virginia football playing primetime TV on Thursday nights. So we hope to add to that. And so with that, I'll take questions. Bob.
Yeah. The Texas game last week against Oklahoma changed at all your evaluation of your team out of your game?
No, not really. I don't know if it did publicly or not. I don't know. Here's the thing. Kind of going back to them, is we didn't play very well defensively, and we weren't very opportunistic offensively. We kind of our own worst enemy offensively with drop passes, and we didn't do a good enough job in the run game getting to the second level, and that was more of a West Virginia problem than it was what Texas was doing to us. But Texas is really good on offense. If you go back, and Ewers is good. I think Card's really good too. I don't know. Obviously, Sark sees a difference. Preparing for both of them like we had to. I didn't see just a whole bunch of difference. I think they're really good at quarterback. They've got a tight end that is really versatile and can get up the seam, and he can run faster than most of the tight ends you see. And then they've got a difference maker at with Worthy, who can take the top off of, and then Whittingham is a really good possession receiver. And then they go about three deep in the backfield, and they do a nice job of using Keelan Robinson, who's extremely fast in a bunch of different ways, and then Bijan Robinson. I think he's as good as any player in college football. And they've got an offensive line that's getting better each week. So they're stout offensively, to say the least, and their D line is going to give a lot of people issues. So I wasn't surprised in that outcome. People forget, they had Alabama beat. They managed to clock a little better than they win that game. And so I felt like it was a game we could win going down to Texas. I don't feel any different after the game. We just didn't play as well as we needed to do it.
What is it about Baylor's defense? Is it simulated pressures? Is it who's coming or whatnot? What do they do that makes them so unique?
Yeah, they've got really good answers. Okay, and it goes back to they can play the box one down, and so like if you're an 11 personnel, most people are trying to get the seventh hat down into the box where you got the defense has a numerical advantage, and when they do that, you leave some guys in some one-on-one coverage. They're good enough with their front six, so when you're an 11, they can play a six-man box and still control the run game, and therefore you don't have any one-on-ones in the pass game. And so that's for this year, the way they've been successful is getting, playing a man down in the box and still be able to control the run game. And so now the other piece they do a really nice job of, and both of these coaches have done this for a long time, is on third down, they scheme protections as well as anybody and try to get put you in some conflicts with, and those are new week to week. So it's not something you can sit there and game plan for because they're going to mix it up week to week.
Neal, you mentioned last week, obviously your team was beat up. Any updates on some of those guys? Or
Charles Wood's probably at least a week out. CJ, I told you, he's not going to play. Mike O will kind of update later in the week. But everybody else should be available, yeah.
Cornerback, too. You talked about, secondary, looking at those pieces. You mentioned Jalen Shelton. There were some other guys that kind of stood out, and could you see some changes there?
So Rashad Ajayi, probably played the best in the back end against Texas. He got hurt there early in the second quarter. The Aubrey Burks is, everybody remembers the dropped interception, but for all intents and purposes, he's a true sophomore. But he only played in I think 6 games last year because he got surgery and had to miss the rest of it. So he's a redshirt freshman as far as playing, and I think he's continuing to get better, and I think he has a high ceiling. I think he'll continue to grow as we go through the year. I thought Andrew Wilson-Lamp, that was the best football he's played against Texas, and we continue to grow his role. I think he's somebody, the more he plays, the better he's going to be. But other than that, the pieces are the pieces. Jalen Shelton's a guy that got healthy, and we're going to give him some opportunities this week. But other than that, we just got to get the guys that we have better. There's not going to be a whole lot of moving pieces right now.
Can you spot on the film where those concussions came from? I mean, each one, and is it something to worry about, or?
No, it's a worry because we had a high number within that game, but we really hasn't had. We always get there's national averages and league averages that go out, and we've been well below. And I really think a big piece of that is a lot of the neck and neck work that we do in the weight room. And so Mike and his guys are really diligent about making sure in season and out of season these guys are doing a lot of neck exercises, because what happens is a lot of it happens by whiplash, and then most of your concussions are caused by hits you don't see. 2 out of them were caused by knees. So, knees came up and hit them on the side. And but, am I concerned? Yeah, anytime you have a head injury, you're concerned. Is it something that's preventable? Were those preventable? I don't think so. They weren't injuries caused by leading with the head or having your head down.
Coach, I'm interested when you were talking about the way Baylor runs its 6, I guess. You look at the numbers, and obviously what they do against the run is one of the best in the Big 12 so far. Obviously, Texas was able to kind of slow down your guys' running game, but it sounds like Baylor does it a lot differently scheme-wise than what Texas does. I mean, is there?
They're both basing out of a 4-man front. Texas played us more of a 3-down front than what they had shown thus far, and there's probably some reasons for that. And Baylor can get to that same front, so we'll be prepared for that. They both have big bodies. I think that's the start. Texas has about 3 bodies that are really large that they play inside. Baylor has 1, but that one is probably does what he does as well as anybody in college football. So, but there's some similarities. How they play their linebackers are quite a bit different. Interior D-line, there's some similarities though.
How much getting that running game going now then?
Oh, it has to. I mean, I think this is, the side effects of having a positive run game are you can hit more explosive plays. And so that's something that we didn't do as good a job of at Texas, And so we need to get the run game going. We've got a chance to be really good on offense, and the expectation is we need to be really good each and every week. And we were just okay versus Texas because we didn't run the ball as well as we can.
How do you move a 360-pound nose, or do you look at other ways?
Yeah, I don't know how much movement we're gonna get. Like on a one-on-one. Honestly, and so you just gotta, do some things schematically a little bit different than maybe you would against a normal sized. I guess, is that the right way? Because it's not like he's just a big body. He's a big body that can move. He moves laterally, uses his hands. They've got him playing with really good pad level, and so, but it's no different than. He's a great player. Just like when you play a great receiver, you have to do some things different coverage-wise. Same thing when you play against a great interior D lineman. You got to do something. You got to do a couple things a little bit different.
Along those lines, if you talk about defenses, you think about players you'd spotlight to worry about, like a pass rusher, a free safety, something like that. But a guy like that who he has 11 tackles, but he's like a really, really good player too. Mm-hmm. For coaching, game planning, is that just kind of one of those things that people overlook as far as like the chess piece you really have to account for?
Yeah, because I think. That's a really good point. And something we talk about is there's a difference between like getting statistically rewarded and actually making the play. All right. And there are so many times where 62 makes the play, even though he's not statistically rewarded. So you'll see people run inside zone to him and he takes the double team. And most time double teams get a little bit of movement. He moves the double team backwards. And then a linebacker makes the play, but he made the play. He just didn't get statistically rewarded, right? And it's the same thing in pass, like when they play him at a zero, he'll take the center and move him back and kind of condense the pocket, and then somebody else will fall in, make the tackle actually, or the sack, but he actually made the play, even though he wasn't statistically rewarded. And so he is. I mean, he's somebody that, I think that he does what he does his job as well as anybody does their job in our league. I think, and he's a special player, and he's a problem. And he was a big factor in our game last year. The thing that stood out from our game last year, just thinking back as we talk about him, was he rushed the passer better than he had shown, and he had a good day with that last year.
It's kind of curious that, obviously you have a really good center with Zach, and obviously you have high expectations on him. Right? For a matchup like this, you just walk into the film room and tell him good luck. I think it's strength on strength. Yeah.
I think that that my assumption is, and I think it's a pretty fair assumption, they probably have a lot of respect for the way Zach plays. And so it is. It's it's strength on strength, and it's a little bit of a chess match there, and. I think it's probably a challenge for Zach, just like it's a challenge for him, because they're well aware that our center's a good player too, and we're able to do some things in the run game because of his ability that other teams can't. Where we leave him he man blocks a lot of things that other people don't. So, it's a matchup of strength on strength.
You talked a lot about the matchup last year, but your team is a little different than last year, certainly. What can you take away from last year's film, since you do have a new starting quarterback, different things that are key differences from last year, or is it just kind of a different season, so you can't take as much away?
Yeah, it's different. They're different. I haven't even spent much time watching the film from last year. Most of the stuff I'm rattling off due to memory because it sticks out because we played so poorly, and so I can off of sheer memory recall most of that game. And so, but they're different. They lost, I think, 3 draft picks defensively. They're playing a little bit different in the back end. Offensively, they're the same schematics. They got some different pieces. But, other than the fact that I thought they physically got after us last year, that's the takeaway from that game more than anything is they physically, both line of scrimmages, were the aggressor last year.
How much does it change not having CJ?
From a situational standpoint, it changes, Bob, like as far as how we're going to approach the running back rotation. That's probably the biggest thing because after game one where we were like, okay, the kid's a player, so we started using him situationally, and really his role was growing. He wasn't playing as well as he had against Texas. I think that was a little bit of fatigue. And so not that we wanted to create this break for him by any means, but I do think he'll come back even stronger because his body will feel better, overall due to the time off. But it will be a factor situationally for sure.
Does it open the door?
Taking on the demeanor of Orlando. What'd you describe his demeanor as?
No, here's what I think. I think he's a guy that he's very true to himself. There's not a ton of highs or a ton of lows, looking at him from the outside. And I think he's consistent. And I think their football team has been really consistent in how they've played. Regardless if they're playing home or away, their level, I don't mean they've won every game, but their level of play has been very consistent in all three phases. And I think that's a credit to him.
Going back to the CJ point, do you mean in terms of change, obviously it's going to change things, but is that more depth chart-wise and more opportunities maybe, or more schematics in terms of, Tony's talked a lot about how CJ, regardless of numbers, regardless of plays, has opened up space for him. So it impacts things more than just who is out there.
No, I think what he does, he goes into it. We've been playing 3 running backs, and now we go into it, we're going to play 2. And so they know there's going to be more carries for both of them. And then what I was saying from a situational standpoint, we were using CJ a lot on third downs because he's a great receiver too. And so now Justin and Tony will come back into that equation, and they'll do a good job. But that, from a situational standpoint, that's kind of what I was focusing on.
Yeah, you mentioned Jalen earlier, but you just said 2 running backs.
Yeah, he'll be the third. He'll be the third, but we'll go in with Justin and Tony. And then if we have an injury within the game, Jalen will be third.
I know nothing about Mike yet, I understand, but tight end is kind of thin. I haven't had Victor, I don't think. Traylon, Brian, can you account for that at all if he doesn't?
So Traylon has been practicing, and he really had a good fall camp. He's just been sitting there third, and we're not in a position where we play 3 tight ends. He had a couple bad luck. The drop versus Pitt, and he had a procedure penalty there. But he came in, and he played, I think, 14, 15 plays, something like that against Texas, and I thought he did a nice job. And there's some things that Traylon does better than the other 2, so it's really about, all right, molding some things that we're doing around what his strengths are when he's in the game. But we have confidence in him. He'll play, and I don't think our fans or anybody following us will really notice the difference when Traylon's in the game.
Do you feel more confidence in the receivers in terms of the drop issues? Because that was a big focus in the Texas game. You mentioned it a lot. Obviously, you had a lot of time to work on it. There were scrimmages. Thoughts now?
Yeah, you just got to make the play. We got to improve it fundamentally. I went through that whenever that last press conference was. I mean, those are fundamental issues. They're not hand-eye coordination issues. They're not. It's really about hand placement and tracking the football. And so our guys, they catch upwards almost 500 balls a week, within a game week. And you do the math, that's a pretty good amount, as far as, and that's in addition to whatever they're catching in practice. Those are on their own from the jugs machine and things like that. So the guys are putting in the work. They just got to do it under pressure situations. And really it's about performing the fundamental aspects of it within those pressure situations.
Looking at them, their possession time's about 3 minutes more than their opponents, and they're going for it a lot again on 4th down. Does that alter or impact how you go about it?
Well, I think, you got to know that going into the game, and so from when you start, when they get around, kind of their minus 40, and maybe even if it's less than a yard, it's basically minus 20, but minus 40, outside a yard is when they start kind of thinking about going for it. And so what it does is it kind of changes your mindset. Like if you get a if you get a stop on first down, or if let's say they throw an incomplete pass, you know, 2nd and long, 2nd and 10 really turns into a first down type defensive call. And so that's kind of how we think about it. But you know that when you go for it on 4th down, you know, like we've had a bunch of 4th downs too. And so our time of possession is really good. You know, I don't know where, I mean, I think we're one of the highest in the country. You know, we got very few, it's kind of a anomaly really. We're have one of the fewest number of possessions in the country, but our time of possession is one of the highest. All right, so that don't usually happen that way. And they're kind of similar in some of that is when you convert 4th downs, you know, people just think about that, but you get 3 new opportunities too. So.
Okay, Coach, thank you.
All right, thank you all.